Over 40 million American workers lost their guaranteed retirement safety net during a $20 trillion systemic shift. Traditional pensions offered lifetime security, where modern 401k plans demand constant individual risk. Yet the real reason your $40,000 salary feels like it is shrinking. To build wealth today, you must understand how the wealthy built a secret escalator. Success in this DIY reality begins with uncovering the truth about the great pension collapse and its lasting impact on your financial freedom. In 1971, the world changed forever through what historians call dollar was decoupled from gold. This transformed your money from a store of value into a piece of paper that loses its power every single day. To grasp the scale, consider that $100 in 1970 buys only about $17 worth of goods in today's economy. This is the invisible tax of inflation, and for someone earning $40,000, it is a silent predator eating your future before you even receive your paycheck. The mechanism of wealth building was further dismantled in 1974 with the passage of the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, known as ERISA. Before this date, the burden of retirement fell on the employer through a defined benefit plan, commonly called a pension. If you worked your years, you were paid a guaranteed check until you died. But ERISA, and the subsequent addition of Section 401k to the tax code in 1978, shifted that entire burden onto the individual. We went from a system where the company managed the risk to a sink or swim environment, where the worker became their own hedge fund manager. In this environment of chaos, John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, launched the first retail index fund in 1975. His philosophy was a direct response to this shift. If the corporations were no longer going to provide for you, you had to own the corporations yourself. For a $40,000 earner today, the old advice of just save money is mathematically impossible. Saving is passive. Building wealth on a modest income requires you to weaponize the very systems that were designed to replace the pension. You are no longer just an employee. You are the CEO of a small but powerful financial empire, and your first task is understanding how the government is actually incentivized to help you win. If you earn $40,000 a year, the Internal Revenue Service doesn't see a worker struggling to get by. They see a strategic opportunity. The math begins with a concept called the standard deduction. For the 2025 tax year, the IRS, under Revenue Procedure 2440, has set this floor at $15,000 for single filers. This means the first $15,000 you earn is essentially invisible. It is shielded from federal income tax entirely. For our $40,000 earner, we are now looking at a taxable base of just $25,000. In the era of Milton Friedman and the supply-side revolutions, the focus was often on the top marginal rates. But for you, here, the federal government offers what is effectively a 12% discount on your future. When you contribute to a traditional individual retirement account or a 401k, every dollar you invest reduces your taxable income by that same dollar. Because you are in that 12% bracket, it only costs you 88 cents to put a full dollar into your investment account. You are instantly yielding a double-digit return before the money even hits the stock market. What started as a simple tax break was about to become a massive wealth generator. This is where we weaponize a little-known tool called the Saver's Credit. This is a non-refundable tax credit specifically designed for mid- to low-income taxpayers. For a single filer in 2025, if your adjusted gross income is $39,500 or less, the government will actually pay you to save. If you contribute $2,000 to a retirement account, you could receive a credit of 10, 20, or even 50% of that amount back on your tax return. It is a direct subsidy for building your own kingdom. Moreover, under the Secure 2.0 Act, This credit is evolving. Starting in 2027, the government will transition this into the Savers Match, a direct federal contribution deposited into your retirement account rather than just a tax refund. While the elite fight over capital gains rates, the $40,000 earner is quietly utilizing a system where for every dollar they save, the government might effectively kick in 50 cents or more. This isn't just accounting. It's an asymmetric advantage that the wealthy, stuck in the 37% bracket, simply cannot access in the same way. At this income level, your primary goal is to lower your adjusted gross income just enough to trigger these massive federal multipliers, turning a modest salary into a high-performance wealth-building engine. If the tax code provides the fuel, compound interest is the engine, but there is a friction point that destroys most $40,000 earners before they even start. We call it the lifestyle trap. In 1975, John C. Bogle launched the first retail index mutual fund at Vanguard, a move that Wall Street elites mocked as Bogle's folly. They did not want you to have a low-cost basket of the 500 largest companies for nearly free. They wanted you to pay actively managed fees of 1 or 2% annually. To understand the gravity of that seemingly tiny number, consider this. A 1% fee on a $400,000 portfolio can strip away over $100,000 in gains over 30 years. On a moderate salary, every percentage point of an expense ratio is a leak in your hull. By choosing index funds with expense ratios below 0.10%, as advocates like the Bogleheads suggest, you are essentially hiring the entire United States economy to work for you for pennies. If you automate $333 per month, exactly 10% of your gross income, and achieve a 7% average annual return, you are building a $174,000 fortress in 20 years. Over 40 years, that same 10% contribution blossoms into $800,000. But the most shocking, while the math of compounding is a mathematical certainty, it faces a lethal predator, the housing ratio. Financial history shows that the primary reason wealth building fails at the $40,000 level is not a lack of discipline. It is the violation of the 30% rule popularized by figures like Senator Elizabeth Warren. For this income bracket, that means keeping total housing costs under $1,000 a month. In an era of asset inflation where real estate has outpaced wages since the Nixon Shock, if your rent swallows 45% of your income, the engine simply does not have enough fuel to start. As economists like Milton Friedman argued, inflation is a silent thief, but the cost of your shelter is the one variable you must control to survive it. Those who treat $1,000 as a hard ceiling are the ones who eventually retire with more wealth than high earners who succumbed to lifestyle creep. The invisible tax of spending more just because your peers do. The goal is not to look rich today, it is to be wealthy tomorrow. By maintaining this housing ratio, you preserve the life energy that Vicki Robin wrote about, ensuring your small salary becomes a self-sustaining wealth machine. To understand why a $40,000 salary is a goldmine for those who know the code, we have to look at the mathematical ruthlessness of the housing ratio. Economists and historians alike have long observed a breaking point in household. For an individual earning $40,000 a year, this means your total housing cost cannot exceed $1,000 per month. If it does, the mathematical engine of wealth building effectively stalls. You aren't just losing money to rent, you are starving the machine of its primary fuel. This is the fundamental difference between what researchers Thomas J. Stanley and William D. Danko identified as the under-accumulators of wealth versus the prodigious accumulators. The latter, those seemingly ordinary individuals like the unassuming janitors and teachers who retired with multi-million-dollar estates, were not beneficial. They were disciplined in their defense of the margin. In 1975, when John Bogle launched the first retail index mutual fund at Vanguard, he handed the keys to this wealth-building machine to the average worker for the first time in history. Before Bogle's intervention, the high fees of Wall Street acted as a silent siphon, often taking 1% or even 2% of an investor's total assets every single year. On a $40,000 income, a 2% fee is not just a line item, it is a life sentence of forced labor. But the most shocking, by opting for low-cost index funds with expense ratios below 0.10%, a worker captures the full power of asset growth without the drag of unnecessary middlemen. Consider the trajectory of $333 a month, exactly 10% of a $40,000 gross salary. Driven by a 7% average annual return, that small, automated sacrifice compounds into approximately $174,000 in 20 years. In 30 years, it balloons to $380,000. This is not merely saving. It is the geometric expansion of your life energy converted into capital. The lifestyle trap is the siren song of a modern consumer economy specifically designed to convince you that they want you focused on the immediate gratification of a depreciating asset today, so you never realize you are trading away a massive financial legacy tomorrow. At this income level, your greatest enemy is rarely the taxman or the employer. It is the invisible friction of everyday expenses and the pressure to increase consumption as soon as you see a modest surplus. Breaking that cycle is the only way to transform a modest wage into lasting power. Ultimately, building significant wealth on a $40,000 salary requires you to stop viewing yourself as a victim of the economy and start acting as its most efficient operator. The structural shift we have seen since the Nixon Shock and the landmark 1974 ERISA Act proves a singular point. The era of the We are now firmly living in a world defined by the theories of Milton Friedman and Friedrich Hayek, where individual choice and sophisticated market participation are the only viable paths to true financial sovereignty. While many see a $40,000 income as a limitation, a student of economic history sees a strategic window. You are operating in a 12% marginal tax bracket, where every dollar you move into a retirement vehicle like a Roth IRA represents a masterstroke of systemic efficiency. You are choosing to pay a small, known toll today to own the entire road tomorrow. By leveraging the 2025 standard deduction of $15,000 and positioning yourself for the federal savers match coming in 2027, you are essentially weaponizing the tax code to perform the heavy lifting for you. As John C. Bogle demonstrated with the creation of the first retail index fund, the key is not to outsmart the market, but to own the entire market at the lowest possible cost. When a $333 monthly contribution, just 10% of that salary, compounds at a 7% average annual return and grows into approximately $380,000 over 30 years, you aren't just looking at a balance on a spreadsheet. You are witnessing a fundamental shift in your family's economic destiny. You are transcending the lifestyle trap that consumes the median household income and instead joining the ranks of the prodigious accumulators described in the classic research of Stanley and Danko. By adhering to the 4% rule in your later years, you ensure that your portfolio becomes a self-sustaining engine of liberty. Mastery of these economic mechanisms, the cold math of compounding, the nuances of the Secure 2.0 Act, and the iron discipline of the housing ratio is the true bridge between the working class and the investor class. It is the process of turning life energy into a legacy. Money talks, but only if you understand the language. Subscribe for more stories behind the economy